programma kwam tot stand dankzij een reis van de Stichting Nederland Amerika. Zij ontving in september 2022 een groep Wereldoorlog II-veteranen uit Canada, Engeland en Amerika. Om hen mogelijk voor de laatste keer persoonlijk in Nederland te eren. Deze veteranen hebben in 1940-1945 op Nederlandse bodem voor onze vrijheid gevochten. Een ode aan vrede en veiligheid. Een ode aan onze verschilmakers. Voor altijd.
My name's Mervyn Kirsch.
I'm Ken Hay.
Frank Riesinger.
Clayton Christensen.
It's lovely to come back with Dutch people. Since the war, they've been very welcoming. But I'd like to go back to pay my respects to the cemetery. I feel that I was lucky to come through the war, which I was.
Just like coming over and meeting new people. They're not shooting at me.
Up there it goes.
Okay.
There it goes.
There we are. Hey! I turned 96 on August 20th. I'm one of the youngest veterans because to be a veteran of World War II, you have to be anywhere from 96 to 110.
I'm 97 years of age, and I volunteered for the Essex Regiment, the first badge there, when I was 17.
And it was while I was at college that I got my papers to join the army.
World War II was truly a world war. Every continent was involved in World War II except for Antarctica. Every continent was involved.
I was still in high school and riding a bicycle for Western Union, delivering telegrams at 25 cents an hour. And when the war started, well, from that, the United States was building an air base in Goldsboro, which was several hundred miles from Charlotte, where I live. So I went to work there, and I worked maybe 6 months, and I got my draft card, and it said, "We need you," or "We want you." And they didn't know what they were getting into, but they got me.
A lot of boys, particularly war is glorious, tanks and all these things. And you have to tell them, there's no fun in war. You see a few dead people, there's no fun. You see people, must I, in halves and things like that. There's no fun.
The first time I got scared was when I woke up in the morning on the boat and saw the outline of France. Then I began to realise it wasn't a game anymore. No more practicing. But the Germans had been battered at the landings, and they hadn't recovered yet. So they didn't bother with me. They had big shells coming in over my head and going out from the Germans over my head, but nobody bothered to shoot at me. I was very pleased with that. But once we landed and settled in, then the German planes were coming over and firing, machine gunning, but they didn't hit me. It gradually got less and less. The German Air Force, the Luftwaffe, was just being wiped out. Every night there were less and less, or fewer and fewer planes, until we didn't see it anymore. And then we carried on through Belgium to Holland, to Nijmegen, to follow up what I learned afterwards was the Battle of Arnhem. It was a failure, but I think our troops landed right on a fresh German division that had just come into rest from the east. We just happened to land on top of them, which wasn't good planning. But I remember the battle, that was in Belgium of course, the Bastille, or the Battle of the Bulge.
Well, I'll never forget the Battle of the Bulge. Hitler had brought his finest army back out of Russia. They chased us around, and we chased them around, and we kept running out of ammunition. And I think that rested on Eisenhower's shoulders, for you're not supposed to run out of ammo. But we did, but we kept fighting. And then we lost so many men in the first 48 hours, something like 3,000 men. And our headquarters called up to the combat engineers and said, "You dummies are going online and fight like infantry." And that was a bad day.
I went over to Normandy, not on D-Day, but as reinforcements in June 1944. We went out on night patrol, and I got captured. They let us through, but they didn't let us back. And we were taken to a place which is now called, I can't pronounce it correctly, but Zabrze, Polish, Zabrze, but it was then called a German name, Hindenburg, where it was a coal mine. And we were put to forced labor in the coal mine.
The first time I got wounded, it just slowed me down. But the second time, it shut me down. And I was there about 3 days in the foxhole. And I met in the 3 days the Salvation Army and the Red Cross, and I don't remember, they both fed me, and one of them gave me a place to stay. When I got back, the captain said, "I've recommended that you be awarded the Medal of the Silver Star." So life went on after that.
We were a patrol of 30. 16 got back, including my brother, who was a corporal in the platoon. 5 of us got captured, and 9 got killed.
Eventually, we got back to Elsenborn. I'd gone to the battalion and signed up to go back to go to South Pacific, knowing that I would first get to the States for a 30-day furlough, and then probably 30 more days to get to the Pacific. Maybe by then the war with Japan would be over. So I went by to see my old first sergeant, who was now a lieutenant, and I was shaking hands with him. Said, "I hate that I'm leaving y'all, but I got my own plans." And he says, "You crazy damn fool." Said, "Your captain was gonna give you a battlefield commission." But I'd already made my mark, so that was the end of World War II in Europe. But the Lord brought me back, didn't let me die. So that was the end of the war for me.
On the 22nd of April, Sunday afternoon, 2 American tanks turned up and in effect released us and took our guards prisoners. When they flew us out, was the most glorious sight, and I can still see it. They put us 25 each to a lorry, and we just went off on these lorries. Came to a wonderful big airfield, and there was a line of Lancaster bombers, as far as your eye could see, with their crews standing in front of each one, and 1 lorry to a bomber. And we stepped off. We introduced the captain of the aircraft, introduced us to his crew. We went on board, and we came home in Lancaster bombers.
Well, we were called the British Liberation Army, BLA, which was a lovely name. But once the Once we got to Germany, we changed our name to the British Army of the Rhine.
Why?
It's an occupation army. One was liberation, then occupation. It was a good feeling to be in Germany, occupying them. That was the best feeling. But the idea of liberation was appealed to me. I liked it. Became as friends, not as conquerors. In previous generations, if a government came in, an army, foreign army came in, they took over where the other one left off. But here, we handed over to the local people. We had civil administrators, and they took over and handed over to the French or Dutch or Belgium, and they became free, which is what I wanted.
But when the the Germans surrendered on May 8th, and of course the Japanese, at that time, the Japanese did not surrender until after the bombs were dropped. You understand or remember, on August 5th, we dropped the first bomb on Hiroshima, and on August 8th, the second bomb on Nagasaki. And then the Japanese cabinet went into seclusion for 6 days and nights while the whole world held its breath and waited for their decision. And at the end of those 6 days, they made the decision not to continue the war on August 14th, American time. It was the 15th in Japan. So at that particular time, I happened to be home on furlough. I was in the Army Air Corps training to be a B-29 navigator. I happened to be on furlough. That's time off from the military to visit home for a few days. So between two air bases, I happened to be home in Tulsa, Oklahoma on August 14th when the president announced on the radio that the Japs had surrendered and the war was over.
When you call me up and ask if I'm doing okay.
I mean, everyone was involved one way or another in factories, civilian life, or the military. It was a wholehearted effort, and we've been in it for 6 years. And I think the way it always has been is what you can give, not what you can get. Now we should go in to help the Ukrainians before we're attacked, not wait till we're attacked as well.
I don't know. It's very difficult because if it meant a nuclear war, that would be virtually the destruction of the world, not just Europe or something. China would have to come in and so on. And I think it would be... I think we're doing right at this stage in providing as much armaments as we can. Whether we should have intervened, I don't know, it has to be bigger brains than mine.
Well, I found we're going the same route as we did in 1935, 36, 37, when Germany occupied Austria and the Sudetenland, and everyone said, oh, it's only a bit of Czechoslovakia, let them have it for peace. It's only the Donbass, it's only the Crimea, let them have it for peace. It's the same route. Don't make the same mistakes. Maybe they've been saying that every generation for 1,000 years, but I still say that.
I'm not burdened with worries, no. And I can stand where I stand to be free.
I lead a very interesting life, I think, still. I used to do a lot of talking to schools, and in fact only in June this year I was talking to 120 children of the Sacre-Cœur College in Caen. They couldn't house it in the school, they took the local cinema, and I had 120 children to talk to about it and answer their questions. You get the same sort of questions like, how many Germans did you kill? And you say, we don't ask those questions, we don't answer them. Were you frightened? Yes. How old were you? This and so on. You answered this. But I got one question this time, and I've spoken to I don't know how many schools. I got one question. A little girl of 13 sitting right opposite me. She said, "How do you stop wars?" That stumped me for a second, but St. Paul came to my head, and I said, love. Love yourself, love your neighbours, love your friends, love your family. And if you can, and I find this the most difficult, love your enemies. That's how you stop wars.
To be free, to be free, yeah. And he ain't gonna jump no more. It's the colors that bring me back to reality, and I try not to forget. It's a luxury.